All right, here's a quick review walkthrough for the things that are going to be on your test on Thursday. I'm not going to cover everything, obviously. There's some things you got to go back and look at, and I'll touch on a couple of those, but just going to hit on the basics. So, inequalities. This whole chapter's been on inequalities. Remember, you solve an inequality just like you would solve an equation. So if I have this, I'm adding 3 to both sides. And that would give me x is less than 10. And then, of course, we have the added extra step of graphing the inequality. So this is going to be an open circle on 10, shade to the left. We know it's an open circle because it doesn't have the line underneath it. We know we're shading left because that's the direction the arrow is telling me. It's a less than sign. Number 2. Basic rules still apply. We always work from the variable side, so I need to do this, minus 4 on both sides. We talked about this is hard to graph because it's a little bit tricky. If the variable ends up on the right, we need to turn the problem around and then graph. Again, I'm going to have an open circle on -12, and I'm shading less than to the left. Right here, what I'm going to do to both sides of this equation? I see multiplication, so I'm dividing. What am I dividing by? -3. What happens when I divide both sides by a negative number? Flip the inequality. Now, open or closed, closed circle, and greater than, shade to the right. Remember, the direction this is pointing tells you the direction to shade. Number 4, again, work from the variable side. This is -4 times x, so I flip the inequality because I divided both sides by a negative number. Now, this one is not mathematically required, but it's helpful. We want to turn this around to make it easier to graph. -20, no line, open circle, shade less than. Okay, so that one flipped twice. Make sure you understand why it's flipping. It's not random. Divide by a negative, change inequality. Turn it around to help with the graph. Again, we solve these problems just like normal. If this was an equal sign, I'd do the same couple of steps. Add 7 to both sides. Divide by 3. Follow the same steps you would if it was an equal sign, but again, we have to graph. I look here, 5. I have a closed circle, shade less than. Number 6, again, add 7 to both sides. X over 4 is less than or equal to -1. What am I going to do to both sides? Well, this is a division sign, so I'm multiplying by 4. What did I do to both sides? I multiplied by +4. Do I change inequality? No. It doesn't matter what the sign of your answer is. It matters what you did to both sides. Okay? I don't care that's a negative answer. I multiplied by +4, no changes. -4, closed circle, shade to the left. All right, now we get to the last couple of things. When you see a compound equation like this or inequality like this, you should automatically know this is an and problem. The other thing we talked about when we're solving these, since it's put together like this, basically we need to treat this like an equation that has 3 sides. Whatever I do in here to solve, I have to do on all 3 sides. Then do the math. This is +2. Now, if I wanted to get x by itself, I divide by 2, so I divide by 2 everywhere. it's an and statement, I'm shading open circle on the 1, closed circle on the 7, and it's an and, so I'm shading between the two numbers. Over here, one last thing. Absolute value. How many equations or inequalities do you have to write? 2 of them. What do you have to do before you do any of that stuff? I have to isolate the absolute value. I got to get rid of this stuff. You cannot distribute into an absolute value. So my first step is to isolate the absolute value. Now I take this and split it into 2 equations. One of the equations is exactly as it looks. The other equation, I change the sign, change the symbol, change the sign. So those are my 2 equations. Since this is greater than, does that make it an and or an or statement? You should know this. We did it in our notes on Monday. That makes it an or statement. So finish the equation. Plus 3. Sorry, typo. My bad. Minus 3 gives me so if x is greater than 4 or x is less than or equal to -10. Open circle on the 4, closed circle, wait, what did I do? Open circle on the -10, less than or -10, greater than 4. We know it's an or, so we're going to shade outside the 2. All right, so solve them like normal. If the variable's on the right, turn it around to make it easier to graph. If you divide by a negative, change the inequality. Sometimes it'll flip twice. Solve them just like normal, even if it's 2 steps. This means division, so you multiply. If you see a compound equation like this or inequality like this, it is an and statement, shade between. Absolute value. Deal with the stuff outside the absolute value first, then split it into 2 equations. When you split it into 2 equations, on the second one, change the symbol, change the sign. If it's greater than, it's an or statement. If it's less than, it's an and statement. Those are the things you need to know for your test coming up on Thursday. Good luck, ask questions.